the truth is, how you scale a business has nothing to do with what you offer. It has to do with who you are. It has to do with your strategy. It has to do with your embodiment. It has to do with the values that you bring forth. And so I offer many things to many different people, and they're available all over the internet. If we're operating from a subconscious standpoint where we don't even really know why we're doing certain things or how that's impacting others, it's an unconscious operation versus one where we're deeply intentional about what we care about, how we impact others, and the leadership with which we're bringing to it.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the How to Scale a Business podcast. My name is Hector Santiesteban, and our special guest today is longtime friend Brianna Greenspan, who is a multi-time best-selling author, multi-time CEO and business leader, and one of the most amazing and genuine human beings you will ever come into contact on this planet. So, Brianna, thank you for sitting down and hanging out with us today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you. And thank you so much for all that you do in the world. You are an amplifier of impact, and it's a pleasure to talk about scaling a business because that's something that a lot of people like to talk about. And in the context of the work that I do, I scale businesses with heart and with integrity. And that's not always the playbook way to do things. And so I love this. I love wherever this conversation is going to go.
Well, there's a lot of shows, I would imagine, and a lot of YouTubes or books on how to start a business. And I think that's great. And those are all fantastic and needed. But I think there's this, let's call them generation of entrepreneurs, very much, that are our age, I guess, that's sort of, we did it and we're like, now what? Like, okay, we got to step one, we got to, phase one is done, but it's not totally what we envisioned, or it's not totally in alignment, or it's not, at the scale or impact that it could be. And so we're like, what's next? And I think you've started to put some of those pieces together because it's not always like a tactical thing. It's not always an external thing. So a lot of times it seems to be this internal journey and voyage that we go on that creates, external business success.
Absolutely. Well, the thing is, everything really is an inside job. Who we are, how we show up, what we think, and the impact that we have starts with the conversation we have in our mind and the intentionality with which we make our own choices. And so in the leadership game, there is an opportunity to get really clear and intentional about taking our work to the next level. And that's something that I have had the opportunity to do in a number of ways. And it's nice to be able to get to step one. It's also nice to be able to get to step two. It's also often a need to move forward to step 3 or 4 or 5. And it's the grace and leadership and openness to the evolution that have all been invaluable ingredients with which I brought to moments of pivot or moments of scale, which every business goes through these moments where you're in one season and that's great, but like we want more. You want to hire more people. You want to help more people. You want to, have a bigger footprint. And what does that look like? And so it is a constant evolution because not every industry has the same blueprint for scaling. If you're in a B2B business, it's one thing. If you're in a B2C business, it's another thing. If you're, in some kind of new age profession, if you will, like you're an influencer or whatever, the keys to scale are often different. And so there isn't one size fits all kind of approach to scaling a business, but that's part of what makes entrepreneurship so interesting and so exciting and the unknowns, if you will.
Yeah. One of the great things about someone like you is that you have such a I don't know the right word here, but let's call it diverse set of experiences, in the sense of the roles you've played, the businesses you've been in, the industries that you've been in, the impact that those things have made. When you look back at the stew that makes up your experience and sort of the skills that you have, are there any pivotal moments or big sort of defining sort of events or experiences that dictated the rest of your career or changed your perspective on how you approach things?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, all of the ways that I'm of service in the world are the direct response to what I wish I had or what I saw there needed to be more. And so there is a lot of my purpose and my leadership and the drive behind it is literally predicated on what I wished I had. And so from the standpoint of I grew up with a pretty serious, complex chronic illness. There were a lot of challenges that went along with that. There were a lot of mindset challenges. There are a lot of physiological challenges. There was a lot of labels and diagnoses and medications. There was a lot of otherness. Kids were cruel. School was hard. Just, the whole gamut. And what transpired is that once I learned that there were resources and tools and frameworks and rituals and practices and modalities that could actually help me with the way that I was suffering, I started getting really curious about how could I use those and then teach those and then bring those to other markets. And what that led to was a passion that eventually led to businesses that eventually led to scalable opportunities. And I have this deep sense of awareness and gratitude that it was in my hardest moments that the opportunities to be of service showed themselves. I don't think I would have been in the professions that I'm in if not for my lived experience. And I'm deeply entrenched in the medical genetics space and the wellness and well-being space and in the resilience and culture change space, all of which are spaces within healthcare and education that I'm deeply passionate about. And it became, a gift, these dark and transformative moments because they catalyzed impact.
You have this sort of in like team sports, we called it like see a need, fill a need, where there was like an opportunity, something needed to be done, and you were like, I can do that. And I think it seems, and I'm once again like assuming and presuming here, that a lot of people would say, oh, that's nice, Brianna, but I can't because, that's nice. It would be nice to do something like that. It would be nice to write a book. It would be nice to work in that sort of industry. It'd be nice to help people, but I've got bills and I've got help, whatever. Like internally, or what sort of allowed you to move past those sort of, limitations and just sort of find a way despite all of those things that you listed?
Yeah. Well, I will say that first and foremost, I'm a different breed. I'm a very beat to my own drum kind of girl. And as a result, everybody has the same amount of time in a day, but I utilize my time very different. I use my time in an action oriented way. I use my time in a conscious leadership driven way. And as a result, there's a lot of non negotiables in my life that other people might prioritize as a need or a desire or a want. For instance, I don't own a television. I haven't owned a television in 14 years. Think about the amount of hours you spend a day or a week or a month or a quarter or a year sitting and staring at something. And for me, I already sit and stare. I'm literally gazing into your eyes right now on a screen. I'm sitting and staring at you. So it's not like I don't have tons of moments that I'm on a screen and captivated by something, but I often try to balance when I sit and stare versus when I'm doing it for a conscious purpose versus an unconscious purpose. So what's happened in my life is that I've gained massive chunks of time. So like I don't go to movies or watch television or consume pop culture, all three of which give me an extra 4 to 7 hours a day. And what do I mean by that? If every single person who listened to this podcast looked at the amount of hours they were on their phone and look at how many hours they were doing what, that's really it. And that's the thing that has been able to give me, from a time perspective, I learned a long time ago that my time is valuable because I grew up with a chronic illness. I may have 5 minutes that I don't have excessive pain. I may have, an hour, or fill in the blank. There may be 20 episodes that happen in 5 minutes or in an hour. And so time is precious and something that I'm constantly, what am I capable of doing in this moment? Because I don't have the next moment, guaranteed. And in my hours, in my days, I have so many episodes that take up a lot of my time. So I don't really allow nonsense conversations, nonsense experiences. Like your drama is your drama. It's not my drama. I really try to mitigate versus like expand on challenges. And that has also given me a lot more time to be reflective and a lot more time to be proactive. And when we talk about leadership and entrepreneurship and in scaling, I often make quick decisions. I often pivot quickly. I often fail quickly, learn more, and I'm already on to the next or the seventh thing before other people have even attempted anything. And so I am in a faster pace. Like We have friends in our learning community, including our friend Carolyn, who connected us for this podcast. And she was just reflecting on, she watched a miss and a miss and a miss and a miss and one after the other. And then we succeeded. And she's like, I watched you miss and have so many challenges that you witnessed or faced or had to overcome so much quicker. Things that would have had other people stay down, you figured a way through. And that's part of the scaling business, because the truth is, anytime you want to take something to the next level, there's going to be an insurmountable amount of friction and challenges and obstacles, and they're all going to happen at once. Like, this is what happens. It's the layered approach of complications to kind of evaluate, do you really want to scale? Do you really want to take it to the next level? Are you ready for what's coming? And a lot of people don't know what they're ready for until they're in the moment. And so there's a lot of learning that happens on the scaling journey.
Yeah, it's really good that you brought that up. First, I want to point out that I don't think that you ascribe to like the team no sleep, like the don't take care of yourself, like risk your health at the sake of working, uh the people like I don't think you're gonna be the people who like wish that they necessarily worked more on their deathbed. Like you're more about intentionality than just working because you're team no sleep.
Yes. In fact, my team just produced an entire wellness village in a Vegas casino at a principals conference, and very on brand. Of course, I was using the tools. Of course, I had a personal sound bath and red light therapy and biofeedback and all before the conference started each day. Of course, I was resourcing myself as well as sharing how others could resource themselves, because filling up your own cup is essential in the impact at scale game. We are not capable of being highly effective leaders at the expense of ourselves forever. And what most people don't understand, if you have this Energizer Bunny syndrome, is that you might think that you could always go at a certain pace because you always have and you haven't felt the ramifications. But the truth is, the science behind well-being will show that eventually it catches up with you. So if you're not someone who's actively engaging and recharging to support your own nervous system, there are moments where it becomes too much. And there are moments for everyone where life becomes too much. But the real question is, are you capable and committed to being a resource to yourself so that you can be a resource to others? So no, I do not subscribe to like the hustle harder, but we work really hard and we play really hard. Like, our team plays full out. We are in it to impact everyone.
Oh, I'm glad you brought up all of the stuff about the sound bath and the red light therapy, because to some, I think we index high on the woo woo scale anyways, Brianna, but to some that sounds woo woo and crazy and whatever. And I'm like, I tell people when they ask, I'm like, I am woo woo woo. Like, I am, throw an extra woo on there. I'll take it all, because to your point, I'm like, I've seen the impact and I've seen it work. And I have had that burnout where early on in my sales career, we were in the middle of a big competition and a sales push, and I just would not want to get out of bed. I literally, my body could not get out of bed. And I remember judging myself so hard for it. Like, you wuss, you pansy, because you see all these other people that are wired differently or have different whatever, different nervous systems, and they're crushing, and they're, 16-hour days, 40 days in a row, whatever it is. And it took me a long time to realize that, like, I'm a little bit different. And so I need to treat myself differently. And so now I do work way less, but I'm also more intentional with my time. And I'm the guy walking down the block barefoot in the grass, in between my phone calls. And because it's just, I'm the weird guy.
Because you're grounding, because you're researching yourself, because you are literally doing what is scientifically shown to recharge your nervous system.
Exactly.
Give me an extra woo. I was like, I am anti-woo. I am like neuroscience all the way. Bring me the science, bring me the facts. And like, I work in medical genetics. I work with the NIH and Harvard and Stanford and the Department of Defense. We publish academic papers. And let me tell you, there is so much validity to supporting your own well-being. There are a lot of questionable ways to do that, which could get a little bit of woo scrutiny, like a sound bath. But when you understand sound frequency, you'll understand how certain frequencies can make you feel different. It's not that complicated.
I had 417 playing in the kitchen all morning. So
Exactly. Frequencies strengthen your cells, certain frequencies make you not feel good. And it's not that big of a deal, but like once you start to understand, it's hard to dismiss as like woo woo. It's hard to dismiss as that's nonsense. It's hard to dismiss as like something just like out there, because it's really so important for us to sell ourselves on what's helpful and why we should do it regularly. And it's complex if our mindset is saying that's worthless, that has no value, that's woo woo. You're already building a barrier between the potential solution, the potential tool being useful for you or not. And it's invaluable that everyone really understands the mindset with which they enter actions, because if your mindset is jarred, then the action, even if you're going through the motions, you're not going to get the same impact as going through the motions with full belief, as going through the motions with full passion, as going through the motions with the intentionality that you're doing this in order to. So there's a lot in the behind the scenes of what's essential to have the right mindset in order to be the type of entrepreneur, in order to take a business to the next level.
yeah, I think that the more that leaders can realize that like how they fuel themselves or what they put into themselves is what they can put into their team, what they can put into their organization, to their community, to whatever. And to just think that they can draw on this well that isn't ever refilled, or in this, on this limitless sort of um, or to consistently tax their body and their nervous system in a way that like they just think they can outrun it with Red Bulls and Monsters. It At the end of the day, it does have like real business implications. It moves from the spiritual and the personal development side to like, oh, actually, are you able to lead your team? Or, like this week we had we lost a couple clients, we got some clients, we had some it's just a lot. And I think in years past, my nervous system would have been like, oh, this is a lot. We should go lay down. And now I have more tools.
But that might be the answer. But that might actually be the answer. And so, like, if the answer is, I need to lay down, give yourself that moment. So I have this new book coming out. It's called The Book of Questions, Living with Chronic Illness. And it's something it's just ridiculous. Like, of all the things that I've ever done, it's the culmination of who I am, what I care about, what I stand for, and the ways that I impact those suffering at a deep level. And the number one guiding question in the entire book. So there's two sections of the book. The first section is like, questions you can ask sometimes or sporadically. And the beginning section is questions that I recommend asking every moment. And so with regard to, oh, I may need to lay down. Well, if you asked yourself a question like, despite how I'm feeling, what can I do to best support myself starting now? And the answer is, I think I need to lay down before this podcast. Then the response should be, okay, I'm going to do that. Because I've now given myself permission to ask an honoring ownership question. Despite how I'm feeling, what can I do to best support myself starting now? Get that water, ground yourself, take a deep breath, go outside, take a nap, fill in the blank, call that supportive friend, like read a positive affirmation, see the sun, whatever it is. Most of the things that may come up are free, easily accessible, readily available, but it's a choice. It's a choice on like, do we ask a good question that allows us to take ownership over what we're experiencing in our real-time moment and mentally honor what came up versus like, I can't believe you're so lazy, or why aren't you getting on this next, whatever the narrative is. You're the only person in your head. So make sure that the narrative in your mind is one that supports you resourcing yourself, that supports you taking moments of pause, that supports you in getting mental clarity, because it's not just about what you do. It's about giving yourself permission to ask that type of question and allow for whatever comes up to be enough, because we are enough. And this like hustle harder culture isn't helpful to actually scaling in a sustainable way. And so it's important to ask questions that are in alignment with the actions that we hope our, like, that we hope our future self, like, I hope my future self asks questions that help support my nervous system. So this is an opportunity for everyone to start thinking about, like, what are the questions that invite us to reflect on and take action over our lived experience. And if you don't have any guiding questions, this is a perfect starting point. Despite how I'm feeling, what can I do to best support myself starting now? It's the first question that I ask myself every single morning, which dictates which morning practice I engage in. It's the first question I ask every time I have a symptom. I just threw up, I just had a seizure, I just blacked out, I just fill in the blank of whatever nonsense happens in my regular lived experience, because I do have a chronic illness. And instead of that taking me down and keeping me down for ever, days, weeks, months, years, I can't even. Instead, I'm able to ask a question and get a range of answers that I then get to choose which answer I'm going to, oh, I need some water, and I need to see the sun, and I need to breathe, and I need to go to physical therapy, and I need this, pain cream, and I need, okay, great. Well, now I understand what I need, and I understand, like, a semblance of an order in order to get them. And I might even understand who I need to call or what help I need to ask for, because I might not even be able to do all those things on my own. And that's really where letting go of ego comes into play in order for the bigger picture. Like, I might feel a certain kind of way if you see me looking disheveled, but I also feel a different kind of way if I'm now on the kitchen floor for 4 hours because I didn't have the courage to ask for help from someone that was probably willing to help if I were to ask. And so there's this catch 22 within the conscious leadership realm. It's all the subtle aspects of being a leader that are essential for expanding the work that you offer.
Yeah, and I think you and I both have read like all the books, right? Like we went through the thing where we like just consumed all the information and read all the books and, listened to all the podcasts. And then the actual implementation or the execution of it, like you're sort of forced to deal with yourself. Like you can't read your way into some, through some of these experiences. You have to, to your point, you have to live them, or you have to be willing to, sort of go through them. Are there I love the idea of a book of questions, and we'll link that up at the end and give you some more time to share when that's coming out. Are there any questions that you think any other questions that you think business owners could be? I don't like to use the word should, but to ask themselves more throughout the day?
Well, the thing is, there's no one size fits all for anyone. But if you're the type of business leader who's like a glass half empty kind of business leader, then I'd love for you to ask yourself a question like, do you focus on more of what you've gained as a result of your experiences or what you've lost as a result of your experiences? Asking questions that bring out a reflective, no right or wrong. The whole point is for you to explore your own thoughts, for you to grow type of questions help everyone to understand where they're at and understand where their areas of growth can be. Because most people who walk around with like the glass half empty mindset, they don't even know. They don't even know they're the person with the dark cloud that walks into the room. But like you, if you're the sunshine and rainbows person, like I am the sunshine and rainbows person. So like I not only bring sunshine and sunshine and rainbows to the rooms that I walk in, but I'm able to notice when someone with a dark cloud walks by and tries to like rain on our positive parade. Because what's happening in the world is that most people are unconscious to how they show up, to their natural demeanor. And so reflective questions are one powerful way to invite people to see themselves as they are. Not who they pretend to be, who they think they are, who in their, aspirational world they will be one day, but get to really confront who they are. And when we confront who we are, we're also able to confront who we want to be moving forward. Because at each moment, we're of choice in how we show up and what we care about and what we stand for. And if we're operating from a subconscious standpoint where we don't even really know why we're doing certain things or how that's impacting others, it's an unconscious operation versus one where we're deeply intentional about what we care about, how we impact others, and the leadership with which we're bringing to it. And so, reflective questions, there are so many. We can drop some in the, I don't know. There's so many. We can drop some somewhere. You can follow me somewhere where, depending upon what you are, how you're choosing to impact the world, different questions can be appropriate.
Yeah, one of my, and this is definitely taken question, but Jay Papasan's and Gary Keller's book, The One Thing, it's, they have a question there. It's something to the effect of, what's the one thing that I can do that makes everything else easier or unnecessary? And that question for, over a decade has been something that's ran through my head. And I often ask, myself, and there's always an answer, which is, incredible.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like the same question can be asked over and over again in different contexts, and it brings up different answers. There's certain opportunities within leadership to reflect and to grow. And, they have there's often like a quarterly check-in or certain kinds of conferences. And why do people, do the same quarterly check-in different quarters of the year, or attend the same conference year after year or multiple years? And it's because we evolve, and as we evolve, the content may be the same, but how we interact or engage with the content changes.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been such a fun conversation, Brianna, and if we had the time, I'm sure it could go for hours, because it really is a well that just there's no bottom to. If people want to get more connected with the project or more connected with you and stay in tune with you and what you're doing, where's the best place for people to go?
Well, thanks so much for asking. There's many different ways. If you're interested in BGI, my educational consulting firm focused on resilience and culture change in the education space, we serve thought leaders and school-based leaders at a city, state, regional and national level. So if anyone is of interest in that realm, bgiimpact.com is our company. And if you're interested in anything else related to the books that I've written or the medical genetics work that I do or any speaking, etc., I have a website, briannagreenspan.com. And beyond that, there's 100 other ways, because I have a publisher and a distributor and our genetics partners. And so depending upon the nuances of what you could be interested in, there's other Google search away. There's other ways that you could find out more. I noticed we didn't actually talk about medical genetics or like any of the actual business things, which is so nice and refreshing, because the truth is, how you scale a business has nothing to do with what you offer. It has to do with who you are. It has to do with your strategy. It has to do with your embodiment. It has to do with the values that you bring forth. And so I offer many things to many different people, and they're available all over the internet.
But mostly, Brianna, it is your heart that you bring to the world, and that's what we're most grateful for. My last question for you, though, is, in your opinion, what is the secret to scaling a business?
My gosh, friend, the secret to scaling a business: pivot fast. Never let your head get too big. There's always something to learn. There's always someone who knows more. There's always someone who's going to do it better. Stay humble, pivot fast.